I want to thank all of our panelists for making it so incredibly thought-provoking, and to all the different diverse subjects and challenges that we as professionals in this field face and have to conquer within our time, or leave a good foundation for others to continue the research that we set forth. But starting off with Hannah, who gave us such a great opening dialogue about the importance of tourism, as we all know, from social, economic, environmental impacts. But, and giving us a foundation about how the World Bank has approached this across all their sectors, and how we should also view tourism from a diverse point of view. And then, talking about creativity, and we've heard from our panelists today about how diverse this field is, and being creative in your approach to your research, as well as creative in your funding, and looking for sources, not just from the World Bank, but other partners that you can bring in. And just talking about the diversity that we've heard. So we've, cultural and heritage, from the slave wrecks to, over in China, the new market in leisure tourism. My specialization is really sports tourism, so it kind of dovetails into that. And then the spora in tourism. For me, I see what Liesl talked about was just last weekend we had alumni weekend, right? What does that do? Alumni weekend brings back all these alumni back to George Washington University. And really the purpose is so they reconnect, and what do? They give. So if you think about the whole concept of bringing people who have left their country back to their country, reconnect with their country, and then maybe they'll have a greater sense of giving. So putting it in that terms, maybe we can all relate and have a better understanding. But I recently had some conversations with people from Ecuador and Guatemala who have returned, and they said they can't go back. Like, foreigners who return to the land are often targeted, and that they have to be very careful. So if they go in groups, if the government brings them back on more of a tour and protects them, maybe they'll feel more safe going back, because that was an issue that personally I have a friend that says, I can't go just as an individual. I'm kind of locked in my home once I get there because I don't feel safe. They know I'm a foreigner, and I'll get robbed, and they'll come and also maybe do something to their family if they know they have some money in the house. So just another thing to think about. The reproductive tourism, just fascinating. And I'm not sure how many of you know, but there's hotels, they call them, in New York, that many people from China and other places come and spend the last 3 months of their pregnancy in these hotels, and just happen to have their baby here. And it's just one way, again, but it involves the tourism because they call them hotels. And so it's another aspect of this reproductive tourism. And later this, November, I think it's going to be November 8th, we're going to have another colloquium, and it'll be ethics in tourism. And I think this is a very important topic to bring up. The multi-country itineraries that Professor Hawken brought up, I think that's important to look at. And just another aspect, we talked about, again, single versus multi-country, domestic versus international tourism, niche versus mass tourism. So these are all concepts that we're familiar with, and opportunities to do research. I thought the case about Punta Cana and Costa Rica was also interesting, looking at more entrepreneurism versus government-planned tourism, and the pros and cons of that. tying it back into the sustainability talk, when you look at Costa Rica, I actually took 3 different years. I took student groups down to look at the sustainable tourism in Costa Rica, and it was fascinating. We were there when they first launched their certificate in sustainability, and it was a government-planned initiative, and so it probably may not have gone so well if it wasn't a government initiative. Similar, we had the discussion of, can you just take that certificate and move it someplace else? But if the government's not backing it, it's not going to work as well. So, really having strong planning and policies in place is important. So we've also talked about the pros and cons of tourism. It came out in every one of the different discussions. The potential effect of increased suicide. Who would have thought of that, of the local citizens? I often thought it's maybe not even the disengagement with your family, but maybe they see the discrepancy of where their life is versus the tourists that are coming, because I've heard that as something that affects the local community. But on the positive side, you have the capacity building we discussed. And again, the investment back into communities. And so I just think there were so many different discussion points, and I hope it's inspired all of you to at least follow one of these paths, or has inspired you to think of a different path to do your research and continue to add to the literature that's already existing. So with that, there was a lot to pull together, but it was fascinating for me, and thank you for all coming, and thank you for the opportunity.